be off, okay. Good thing for the cell phone time.
Okay, good to go.
Thank you. I'd like to call the Douglas School Committee to order on June 26th at 6:30 p.m. Can we do a roll call vote for who is present for school committee, please?
Beth Bergstrom here.
Teresa Brooks present.
Julia Lagerholm present.
Heather Moran present. I know Meg Rodson is going to be joining us late, and when she does, we will make a note of it when she arrives. Thank you. I'd like to read the Douglas School Committee's mission statement. The Douglas Public Schools offers a diverse learning experience that meets the academic, social, and physical and emotional needs of all of our students. We provide a safe and supportive and a challenged learning environment in which our students may achieve academic success and personal growth. Decisions are made in the best interest of our students. We don't have a student representative, correct?
Correct.
Do we have anybody here for public comment? I don't think we do.
Nope,
So moving on to old business,
we don't have any.
moving on to new business and the superintendent's report, please.
All right, all we have on here tonight is changes to the handbook. We proposed, Mr. Ringett and his team proposed some changes to the attendance policy last time, and there were some questions the committee had. We followed up with legal counsel, Mike Joyce, Mr. Ringett and Dr. Rosenthal had a conference call with him, and we made some changes. So for the three of us who are three members of the school committee, thank you for that feedback. We actually saw some positive things, and it was good for us to reach back out and have the extra time to think about it. So I'll turn it over to Rob to give a quick recap and then an update on the changes after the lengthy conversation with council.
Thank you, Dr. Vieira. So to recap where we were, last time we met, I presented an attendance policy change, which would be kind of different from what we've been seeing at our district, so at our high school so far. So we were the proposal included a change in the amount of days that were allotted. One of those statements was the fact that we used to be at 5 days per term for unexcused absences. And then students would have to stay after school to buy back time. The updated policy that I'm proposing would be more of a global and year-long stance of a total of 17 absences, excused or unexcused, just a blanket statement of 17 absences to kind of go in line with the state and what their definition of chronic absenteeism, which would be at 18 absences due to the 10% rule that the state holds for chronic absenteeism. So when a student has missed 18 days or more, they're now deemed chronically absent. With that being said, that's how we came up with the 17. And then we progressed from there. The verified absences that are kind of out of our control type of things would be court appearances, religious holidays, college visits, 3 for juniors, 3 for seniors, bereavement when the death of an immediate family member occurs. Again, we're going back to where we were a couple of weeks ago. Also, a couple of weeks ago, things that were not considered absences were school imposed quarantines, field trips, assemblies, club, council, or athletic activities that would take place during the day. And that would basically cover our new attendance policy. That was proposed a couple of weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, when I proposed this originally, when a student reached 12 absences, we would allow them to become eligible to participate in an attendance rebuilding or buyback program. To buy back 1 absence, a student would have to be on time and present for the entire day for 5 consecutive days without getting dismissed and without being tardy. Additionally, those 5 consecutive days could be a Monday through Friday. They could be a Tuesday through Monday, a Thursday through Wednesday, as long as it was 5 consecutive days. So that was the original proposal from a couple of weeks ago. After speaking with legal, I'll make a couple of notes here. They were actually happy that we were changing from where we currently have it to update it. The lawyers said that by some of our actions would be difficult to defend, such as an administrative 50, such as, 5 unexcused versus excused, and doing all that because it's not in line with the state. So we did get some praise on adjusting some of those things. He also really liked our buyback policy change and how that was non-punitive, and that in his vision, he could see every kid being able to do that. And it wouldn't exclude any populations, which was good. One of the things that came up at the last school committee meeting was about around 504s and IEPs. Dr. Rosenthal had to leave early that night, so he wasn't there to make that clarification. And I'll be honest, that was not a question I totally expected, so I wasn't overly prepared for it. However, after doing some searching and making sure I had all my I's dotted, T's crossed, one of the things, whether it's written in here or not, regardless about student handbooks, 504 plans and IEP plans are meant to disrupt policy that would inhibit a student from achieving or making academic progress. But what we can do is we're going to add some language. We did talk to the lawyer and added some language that would make sure that that was also in with this part of the policy, this part of the handbook. So that way it was at least visible in this section as well. So one of the additions was nothing in the policy should be construed to prohibit the 504 or IEP team from addressing disability-based absences in a manner consistent with the student's needs in state and federal law. So I think that kind of covers that part of the question. There was an additional piece to it that I discussed, students that happen to be out with something that is chronically happening to them. And let's say it happens over the course of 14 days. Once a student hits 14 days with the same issue, they're allowed to go through a physician's affidavit and go through that process. We adjusted some of that language a little bit as well. Pulled a little bit from FMLA language, kind of how that works in the workforce, and apply it to the students as well. So some of the language that we added here would be students who miss 3 or more cumulative days due to a serious medical condition will be required to submit documentation within 5 days of the diagnosis or the most recent doctor's visit to be considered for approved absences, which will not count towards credit loss. Once the total reaches a cumulative total of 14, a DESE approved physician's affidavit will be required. So if we have a student that happens to be out with, let's say, I'll use the broken leg example. Student out with a broken leg, let's say it's really bad and he has to have surgery, or she has to have surgery. So they have to have surgery. Surgery goes well, but they're still out. There's 3-4 days right there. They go back for their checkup on their broken leg. Well, that part of it is part of the broken leg piece. So that would be included with this part of the policy. So we would not be using that absence against the against their credit loss. So it works in that aspect. So that way, if there were complications and they did reach that 14 days, we would actually we would be in communication with the families already at that point. But the idea is that we say, okay, there have been complications. Your child's missed more than 10 days, but 14 days according to the Department of Ed's documentation. You know, why don't we go through this process? And I've talked to Dr. Rosenthal a few times about this, because once a child hits so many days, we do have to provide an education for them. And we want to be able to have the paperwork in line so that we can actually go through the process correctly. So that is also added to the attendance policy. I just said a lot. Are there any questions at this time?
Can I just pause for a second and let the record reflect that Meg Rogson joined our meeting at 6:34 p.m.? Meg, can you say that you're present, please?
Sorry, was that directed at me? Heather, you guys broke up.
Just say that you're present at the school committee meeting. I noted that you joined at 6:34.
Thank you so much. Sorry I'm late, everybody.
No, it's no worries. Thank you so much, Meg. Does anybody have any
Rob,
questions?
thank you for, I was gonna say, Rob, thank you for all that clarification. I feel like that covers a lot of what we talked about last time. The only, the broken leg, I think really does cover like physical illness. I was still slightly concerned about mental situations that maybe have not been diagnosed, especially at the high school level. Any like thoughts, or like what are your thoughts if a child is being diagnosed with anxiety or whatever the case may be and they're missing school days? I know you guys, have counselors to work with them and that kind of thing, but again, like my concern is giving kids like severe anxiety over losing credits if they're already experiencing anxiety. And what do you think the school can do to kind of help the parents through the new attendance policy?
So I think something like that would fall under a serious medical illness. So there are different types of anxiety that we see at the high school. And I'll kind of run through that a little bit. We have parents and families and students that we are very well aware of a student's level of anxiety. It has been brought to our attention. We've been in regular communication. People have, we've worked through perhaps a 504 process to help deal with that, to kind of provide guidelines. We may have gone through Care Solace to help with counseling services. So we've done that legwork already. So we have that type of situation. We have other situations at the high school, and I'm sorry to say that a lot of times that we get a phone call from a parent saying my child's anxiety, I can't get them in. So we say, okay, what have we done to help in this area? And a lot of times we do get people beating around the bush for us and saying, well, we were trying to get counseling, but we didn't get counseling because of X, Y, or Z. This allows us to maybe kind of push that a little bit more on parents. If a child is in need of counseling due to a mental health illness, we want them to be able to seek that counseling in any way possible. So I would put that mental health and piece under the serious medical conditions.
Dr. Roosevelt has his hand up. I don't know if that was an error or if you really do have your hand up.
No, I do. I wanted just to expand a little bit. Part of this is also our responsibility of the school district for Child Find. So if a student has something that is creating a barrier towards their education, it is the school's responsibility to determine if there's a disability that is impacting that. And that's through evaluations that could be done through a 504 or an IEP. So we have the obligation as a district and the requirement to do that. So if we do have students that might not have been previously identified, we have the need to do evaluations if that was to arise. So part of this is whether it's coming from the outside or from our own evaluations, we have to take that into consideration every time, and determine if there is anything that needs to be looked at, whether it's an IEP, individual education program, which can outline schedule modifications, which could address some of the attendance practices and policies, or a 504 plan, which again is an accommodation plan that can outline schedule modifications that are required due to a disability. So we have a few mechanisms that will be triggered. Part of this is also, as Principal Ronget said, that we have doctor's affidavit saying there is something that is impacting the student at this time, which we have to take in from an outside source and take into consideration, whether it's for a 504 or an IEP, and determine, is there anything individualized we have to do? Look at our policies and practices, whether it be the attendance policy, maybe it's a grading policy, whatever it might be, and make that determination. Do we need to adapt something individualized for this one student? If that makes sense.
The other thing to look at, Beth, I saw your hand up, but if you just look at some quick DESE data, and this came out through March of this year, at the high school alone, 25.5% of students are deemed chronically absent, so missing 18 days of school. And we had 7.2% of kids at the high school missing 20% of the school year. So we have a quarter of our kids listed as chronically absent, missing over 18 days. And we all know if kids aren't in school, they can't learn. They also can't get all those additional benefits of coming to school, whether it's a socialization, the breakfast and lunch, whether it's meeting with our counseling department. So we're just trying to find different ways to get kids to come to school and stay in school. And then this policy hopefully will help spurn or cause maybe some families who may have been reluctant in the past to have dialogues with Rob or Desi or people in the counseling department, may cause some additional dialogue to happen, which can help us get kids the help and support they need. Beth?
Thank you, Rob, for what you did and what you put into it. But I just want to say we are in the middle of a national mental health crisis. So pushing parents to get mental health help, they might not be able to actually get help. And I know that what you're trying to do is be supportive, but I think we have to be mindful of our language and how we're looking at families who are probably doing the absolute best that they can to get help. It is not, Care Solace and all these things are great and wonderful, but if there's not a body to provide a service, it doesn't matter what the family did or didn't do. There's nobody on the other end. So setting up our policies to make sure that they're supportive, but also holding all of us accountable is important. I just would like to know, what is the documentation process? Like, what are we doing to document these actions and to show consistently, is there a way that you make sure so-and-so talked about something or when, and how are you documenting that, and how are the parents understanding what that process is?
So a lot of that documentation, depending on where we are in the process, fluctuates. So if we're in the early stages of that process, that documentation would be in the form of doctor's notes that we would normally typically get. But instead of it being, let's say, from a physician, maybe it's from a mental health provider, things of that nature. Beyond that, once we get past the initial stages, we move into, a lot of times our counselors, our adjustment counselor will look to have a form signed where they can share information about the student that's requiring help. So that way the services are being consistent. That way the information being transferred is being consistent. And it stays essentially between the adjustment counselor and the student and the outside counselor and the student. That's what happened. And that's where the documentation really comes from, is especially in the mental health situation, because that's ongoing. It's continuous and ongoing. It doesn't go away just by snapping a finger or by hey, here's a new attendance policy or anything like that. It doesn't go away like that. It just needs that continuous interaction between providers, between families, and between us.
I agree, but I guess more of my question is how would say somebody that had Mrs. O'Brien versus somebody that had Mrs. Ryan, how is that process the same for all students? I guess what I'm saying is that if a child, every kid is individualized and every situation is individualized, but we should be handling things in a consistent manner and our staff should know what the process is. So that's more of kind of my question.
So a little behind the curtain stuff is on Monday mornings, we hold our administrative team meetings. During those meetings, what we do is we talk about students in need for one reason or another, and it could be for any reason. A lot of times what comes up is, who have you been seeing a lot? What's been going on? Do they need to be referred? Do we need to child find them? Do we need to? So during those meetings, I hold my meeting notes as to anyone we've talked about and anyone we need to follow up on, things like that. So we have a process in place as to those students that are coming in. What are we doing for them? Again, like you said, consistency is important. And, I kind of use people like Kristen O'Brien and Jill Carpenter. There are two guidance counselors. That's kind of like our first line, if you will. For that type of stuff, if students start coming down more and more often, they usually see them first. If they are in need of additional support on top of that, that's usually when Mrs. Ryan, our adjustment counselor, comes into play, and they start setting up regular appointments with Mrs. Ryan. And again, that's part of the process that we kind of go through. It's and again, we talk about this every Monday morning for about an hour and a half, so we can get through the piece of knowing who needs to be on a radar, who's showing up on a radar, who's flying under the radar. Did we get anything have teachers given us any information? Have parents given us any information? Have we received any emails or phone calls from anybody from the outside? So as far as like a paperwork process, paperwork wise, there's probably less paperwork involved in that process. However, there is an actual process in order to have students migrate from one tier to the next tier to the next tier. So.
So I'll ask my question, and I'm sorry if it was this new policy that we're going to implement. Is it going to be? I'm assuming parents have to sign and kids have to sign, right? Every year that, hey, they've read the guidance, right? To make sure we're conveying this to the community as a whole, and social emotional needs of our kids, right? Sometimes the kids don't talk to parents about what's going on, right? And I think that's where I'm very concerned about this policy that we're going to put in place. I understand we want kids in school, but there's got to be a balance. And I know that we are very mindful of that, but I also think that we should be highlighting this at the beginning of the year to ensure that the kids know where to go to get help, what resources are available, as well as staff. Staff knows how to look out for our kiddos. Because again, this is tough for all of our kids in school. And it's not just at the high school, it's at the lower levels too. And if we're foolish if we don't think that how it impacts our kids is totally different from a pre-COVID to a post-COVID environment. Anxiety and stress eats kids alive, and sometimes they just don't talk, right? And so I'm okay with going forth with the policy because I think the updates warrant, but we just need to be mindful that we may need to backtrack yet again to come back and review this policy, because if it's not in the best interest of the kids, then we need to do something else. But I understand the reason why we're trying to do it. I totally get that, but we just need to be mindful of our kids.
And Rob, do you want to talk a little bit? I know, Heather, to answer your question, Rob's already started putting together a communication plan for families and staff. So do you want to share that? He shared it out with me earlier this week. It looks good, but you want to talk a little bit about that?
That's exactly where I was going with it, Dr. Vieira.
Perfect.
Thank you. So I've already started building a presentation for parents. So in building the presentation, I'm supplying them with data we collected from the state, data from our own services, and data from the students themselves. So again, we want to take it from as many possible sources, especially those that are going to be impacted the most. We had over 50% of our students say that both the buyback system and the attendance policy needed to be changed. So I met with a couple of students individually because I let the survey be completely anonymous. So that way they could be as brutally honest as they wanted to be. And you know how students can be. So Mr. Vega, myself, Miss Brainy, the guidance staff, everybody a part of the attendance group, we all kind of parsed through all of the student responses just to see what it was that they were looking for. And ultimately, they hated having only 5 days in a term that they could be absent. Their number one concern was can we have a group of days over the year and work off that group of days? Because there's one thing to be said for a kid that might go on vacation in the middle of October because flights are cheaper or whatnot. But then because they're on a plane for 3 hours with circulating air, they get sick and they have to be out for another 5 days. Well, okay, so we have that kind of already built in already, so we're not penalizing them right away. Our focus is to make sure that we catch them up and that we support them in every possible way. But yeah, to further your question, Heather, we already started putting together a kind of like a meeting that I plan on having with the community for anybody that would want to come. The plan is if this were to be approved, it would be recorded, and that way anybody who wasn't there, it gets sent out to them as well. It would go out in my blast, and I was planning on doing it actually a couple of times, once in July and once in August as we got closer, because on something like this, you don't want anybody to be misinformed. You don't want anybody to hear it third hand just from their child. You don't want to, because they're not getting complete information. I want to be able to answer questions, because parents will have very individualized questions and say, my kid has X, Y, or Z, or my kid needs X, Y, or Z. And I'm just going to say, this is the situation for your child, and this is how it would work. Of course, if it was more sensitive, I would say, why don't we talk off air? And I will address your situation off air, of course, because you want to be mindful of some of those more sensitive situations. But yes, there is a plan in place to roll out essentially any change to parents. And being summer, they're not going to necessarily check their email. They're not going to check this. They're not going to check that. But at the same time, through our one call system, I can send a message out there through phone call or text or email and say, this situation would be more like a text, say, please check out this for updated changes, because pretty much everybody would look at their text message and see what's going on. But yes, there is a plan in place to make sure the public was notified and aware. And again, if they had any questions, could be answered.
Thank you.
Julia has been patiently waiting with her hand up.
So this is a little bit, it's on topic of the tardiness, but not quite the policy. And I'm just wondering, and I apologize for not knowing this, but like you all know, I'm fairly new to the district. Are there in-house services offered by a third-party counselor? So say a therapist that comes in that the students can access, it's usually covered through insurance. Parents don't need to drive them, they do it during the school day. I know other districts, actually one of my besties is a therapist and she used to go out to like Wachusett and she did it out there for a bit. And I think it's a real benefit to the students and I think it would help combat this.
So we don't have an outside therapist coming into the high school on a regular basis to provide services to just anybody. We don't have that in place. We do have a couple of different types of services that we have, but they're based on very specific things. So if it was alcohol or drug related, we have a very specific group that we've partnered with through IDASIDE and Mass General Hospital that's allowed us to provide services along those lines. As far as a third party coming into the high school, I just want a clarifying question here. Would that be to service pretty much anyone that needed to interact, or I don't?
So it'd be almost like people would just like you do. So I'm a student and I have a therapist. I would, instead of leaving school grounds, I would go to therapy during school, whether it's a 20-minute, 30-minute, 45-minute session. And so what this does is the therapist comes in with no clients rather, and then they're just a resource that there'd be intakes, the whole process. It'd just be like having an in-house therapist, but the problem is, or not the problem, the way it would work is it'd be an outside organization. So you'd get a group, I don't want to name any, I don't put it on blast, but they have organizations out there, right? Different companies where they've got staff therapists, and that particular therapist that would go into the school, their caseload would be Douglas students.
So, okay, so I have a little more clarity. So I haven't looked into that, I'll be honest. It's not something I'm against looking into. I will gladly look into that as an option. But I would also kick that can up the chain of command a little bit to Dr. Vieira.
Yeah, we have our elementary school. It's done in our elementary school, so we can talk offline about it.
Have
go
it
ahead,
in the
Beth.
high school because I had a student who just left that had it. So
So we have
Go ahead,
a family continuity. We have a family continuity partnership (FCP) right out of Whitensville. The one component with them is that they're inconsistent with counselors. They don't. There's a lot of turnover, and in that piece. But we do have a relationship with them in each of the schools. Again, it does come to a consistency piece.
But we can further explore that.
Thank you. I just wanted to throw it out there. I didn't know what was going on, but I think it's could be a real benefit, of course, if you find somebody who's consistent. But other than that, I think the policy is, I think it's a work in progress. I think it's, I think it's improved a lot compared to where it was.
So if nobody else has any questions, we'd be looking for a motion.
I move to approve the high school handbook change in regards to attendance as discussed tonight.
Motion made by Teresa, seconded by
I'll second that motion. Julia.
Julia. And we need to do a roll call vote, please.
Beth Bersham, aye.
Teresa Brooks, aye.
Julia Lagerholm, aye.
Meg Rodden abstain.
Heather Moore and I. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate
You're
that.
welcome. It'll be a work in progress, I'm sure. So, but we appreciate it. Thank you so much for the work you put in. Moving on to, there's nothing else in the superintendent's report, correct?
That is it for
Moving
tonight.
I don't believe we have an accounts payable report at all.
And no, we do not for this evening.
Moving on to the consent agenda, and it's the June 5th meeting minutes.
At the very end of the June 5th meeting minutes, it talks about adjournment. And I don't know if this was supposed to be there. It says, you know, went into executive session, and I was listed as voting aye, but I wasn't there. Heather, you were also
I
voted
wasn't
aye,
there.
so I just
Yeah.
wanted to put that out there.
And I just saw just one typo thing that I can let Lauren know about. The FY 2025 is listed twice under one of the votes, but I can just let her know about that too.
So do we want to do a motion to make with the corrections as noted and or come back and redo them?
Did it go into executive session on the last school committee meeting?
I don't recall if we had executive session. Let me look to see.
Yeah, to be
I
honest
don't
with you,
remember
I
either.
don't
It was
remember
really
either.
late.
Yeah,
Yeah,
So
we did.
We did.
okay.
Yes, we did.
Yeah, okay.
I would be fine with approving it as amended,
Amended.
that we were not, Heather, you and I were not at the meeting, so we obviously couldn't vote aye.
So motion made by Teresa, seconded by,
Second.
Julia,
well, second by Beth or Julia, which one?
I'm unmuted, so Julia,
Okay. Seconded by Julia with a roll call vote, please.
Beth Bergstrom, aye.
Teresa Brooks, aye.
Meg Rods
Julia
and I.
Lager- Julia Lagerholm, aye.
Heather
Sorry,
Moore.
Julia.
It's all
It's cool.
good. It's all good. Thank you. All right, moving on to the FY 2025 Whitten Community Center Agreement.
Yes, as we do each year, this is the FY 2025 Whiten Community Center agreement for the before and after school program. As you know, Whiten Community Center is a nonprofit located in Whitensville. They have been providing before and after school program for our students of Douglas parents for a number of years. Their program is conveniently located in the primary school. They do utilize 2 classrooms with adjoining bathrooms and have use of the gym several times a week. They also utilize the playground, which is located directly outside the area that they occupy, that they utilize. So we are recommending the current fee of $10,000. Whiten Community Center provides a program that is beneficial for the parents and the students. It is conveniently located within our schools, which provides for ease of transition for the students and convenience for parents to pick up their children at the end of the day. They also work, the Whiten Community Center staff and primary school do work consistently together and collaboratively throughout the school year. The revenue received is spent on facility needs within the primary school. That's all that we could spend the funds on. It does go into a facilities use account, revolving fund. So I didn't know if anyone had any questions.
No one has any questions? Be looking for a motion.
I move to approve the Whiten Community Center license fee of $10,000 for the FY 2025, 2024 through 2025 school year for the use of the Douglas Primary School for the before and after school care program.
Motion made by Teresa, seconded by
Meg.
Meg. Roll call vote, please.
Beth Bergstrom, aye.
Teresa Brooks, aye.
Meg Rods and I.
Julia Lagerholm, aye.
Heather Moore and I. Thank you.
Okay, thank you
Moving-
very much.
Moving on to the FY 2025 Student Activity Funds account for the Douglas Middle School and the Douglas High School.
Yes, I just want to make sure that everybody received my revised agenda item summary. I just needed to add some vote language to it. So certainly the spreadsheet that I provided still goes along with it. No changes were made there. So pursuant to Master Law, Chapter 71, Section 47, which governs student activity funds, along with the procedures and audit guidelines as promulgated by DESE. Student activity accounts must be established by vote of the school committee, which when we bring them to you individually, we always do that. But the auditors also recommend, per DESE guidelines, to confirm them each year, which is what we're doing. And we also, some of the changes that are being made is, and it will be within the vote, is we do need to close the middle school show choir student activity account. That's been there for years, just sitting there. And actually the auditors will write us up if we have any accounts that are left over 2 years without doing something with it. That was a fantastic program that we did have years ago, but it's just we do not have that happening at this time. So we're looking to transfer, to close the show choir student activity account and transfer the funds to the principal's student activity account to be used for the benefit of the student body. And the other changes that were made, let's see, is as they do every year, the high school closes out, they close out their class of 2023. Elaine has been fantastic keeping on top of that. She does a great job on procedurally and everything, and that's been all taken care of. And also, we are closing the newspaper club. Actually, that's been there hasn't had activity for years, and I kind of got by with the auditors kind of giving when the prior principal was here. After COVID, I wanted to allow them another chance to see if they could get it going again, but it's been several years again, and that hasn't taken hold. So we will be closing that account as well. And I think that's all. And of course, they did add the new class of 27 and class of 28 at the high school as well, which we do annually. Are there
Anyone
any
have
questions? I'm sorry.
No worries. Any questions from the committee? If not, be looking for a motion.
So Courtney, I'm going to move, but if I make a mistake, I'm reading the wrong one, please stop me. I move to affirm the student activity accounts for the Douglas Middle School and Douglas High School student activity funds per the attached FY 2025 student activity accounts listing, and close the show choir student activity account and transfer the funds, approximately $2,261.78, to the principal's student activity account to be used for the benefit of the student body.
Perfect.
Motion made by Teresa, seconded by
Meg,
Meg. Roll call vote, please.
Beth Bergstrom, aye.
Teresa Brooks, aye.
Meg Rods and I.
Julia Lagerholm, aye.
Heather Moore and I.
Okay, thank you all.
Next one is the non-union employee benefits.
Sure. So our non-union personnel have an employee handbook, which outlines a lot of their benefits, and that employee handbook has not been updated since 2009. So as we were looking at things, we thought it was time to take a look at some of their benefits and see how in line they were with our other bargaining units, knowing that we negotiate every 3 years with our units, and this hasn't been updated in 15 years. We knew there was a gap. So we're coming to you today to look at let me just find it on my screen. To come to you with the following proposed changes. The first comes in terms of longevity. Currently, they receive longevity at 15, 20, and 25 years. Most of our bargaining units have a 10 and a 30. So we're looking at adding a 10 and a 30 to the proposal. The dollar amounts haven't changed in 15 years. So we're looking at doing an increase in the dollar amounts as well before you. The way it's broken down is we have school year employees and full year employees. So that's the first part. The next part came in terms of vacation language. We're still going to keep consistent with a maximum of 5 weeks, but currently people are starting off with 2 weeks vacation, and it takes them up until the end of their 4 years, the start of their 5th year, before they can get that 4th week. What we've seen across local school districts is most people are starting off with 3 weeks vacation time to start. And what we're looking to do is start with 3 weeks, but also decrease how long it takes before you get to that next level. So instead of being 4 years to get to the next level, this would be 3 years. The second category is now between 4 and 14 years, you would get 4 weeks of vacation time. And instead of taking 20 years of continuous service to accrue 5 weeks vacation, you would get it at the end, after 15 years of continuous service. So again, giving people 3 weeks up front, which is a little more consistent with what we've seen, and not making people wait 20 years to get that 5th week. Next came with sick time and personal day accrual. We're just trying to get them consistent with what our other bargaining units are doing. So currently, school year personnel for sick time have 10 years. We're proposing 15, which is consistent, in full year from 15 to 17, and then doing the same thing with personal days. And then the final piece of it was bereavement. Oddly enough, all of our bargaining units have different language for bereavement. Really what we're adding here is a couple of things. Is one, putting in there the ability to take the time non-consecutively. As we know, and we've seen in recent years, you might have someone pass away in a memorial service done 2, 3, 4 weeks, or sometimes 3, 4, 5 months down the road. So they don't have to take the time consecutively. Also, putting into the writing memorial services or celebrations of life qualifying as bereavement leave. And then finally giving the superintendent the ability to grant additional days for bereavement that may not be listed here if needed by one of the individuals. So again, just trying to get it a little more consistent. Looking at the policy not being updated since 2009, we thought it was long overdue. It was a conversation Courtney and I started 2 years ago, and we finally tackled in the past 6 weeks.
Excuse me,
What-
Paul, can I just
Yeah.
clarify? We
Sure.
kind of jumped from sick time accrual and personal days and kind of said it was the same thing, but so for the personal days, the school year went from, we're proposing going from 2 to 3, and then full year from 3 to 4.
Correct.
Just to clarify that, okay.
Julia, you had a question?
Yes, and this might be one of my more embarrassing questions, so just get prepared. When I was looking at the accrual rate for the proposed vacation, so 3 weeks vacation time, you accrue at 0.83 days per month. But how does that equal 15 days?
If you
Okay.
take if you take 0.83, multiply that by 12. Oh, you don't.
No, wait a
I
minute.
know. And same thing with 1.25 for 4 weeks vacation time.
Courtney, can you look at that?
Oh, yeah, okay. All right, hold on, yep. Let's see, okay. Yep, I see what I did, yep. Yep, this should be 1.25.
Your embarrassing question was a very good catch.
Thanks. I was like, I swear 0.83 times 12 does not equal 15.
No, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And same thing with the 1.25 days
Yeah.
underneath.
We'll
Oh,
fix
no,
that.
I'm going through, yep. I'm just double
All right,
checking.
cool.
Yep.
I was afraid maybe I didn't know how to do
No,
math,
the
which is
last one's
very
okay. No,
possible.
no, thank you very much. I've been working
always
on
spend more
a
money than I have.
lot of things lately, so thank you.
That was
Okay.
good.
No,
Catch.
you know
Thank you,
you're going a
Julia.
mile a minute. All right, cool. That was it.
Okay,
That was
so,
it.
so we would be, amending the proposed vacation language for the 3 weeks vacation time. It would accrue at a rate of 1.25 days per month. The, 4 weeks vacation would accrue at 1.66 days per month. And then, no changes to the 5 weeks vacation. That remains at 2.08 days per month.
Other questions? Okay.
I'd be looking for a motion
As amended.
as amended.
Okay.
I'll make a motion as amended to approve the updates to the Douglas Public School Employee Benefit Manual for the non-union employees for the school year of 2025. 24-25.
Well, actually, we, well, to begin, in FY
25.
25, to begin
Okay.
in FY 25, yeah,
To begin in FY 25.
thank you.
Motion made by Julia, seconded by
Meg,
Meg. Roll call vote, please.
Beth Bergstrom, aye.
Teresa Brooks, aye.
Meg Rod and I.
Julia Lagerholm, aye.
Heather Moore and I. Thank you. Now moving on to the athletic director DTA contract language amendment, please.
All right, so Rob's here to help out, and this is actually something that's been long overdue. Currently, the way the contract is written, our athletic director receives a stipend once at the end of the year. So they do the job for the entire year, and they get the stipend at the end. That's been a bone of contention over years and things we've tried to change, but during negotiations, it hasn't happened. Currently, we're in a situation where Mary is not retiring from her position as the athletic director, but retiring not retiring from her position as a physical education teacher, but retiring from her position as the athletic director. Rob had a lot of conversation with people inside, and for various reasons, no one was able to make that commitment. So we had to go outside of the school system to hire someone. Rob did various interviews, and the question from individuals was, so wait, I have to work 11 months before I get a paycheck. And it made sense. So we're looking at two proposed language changes which would go into the contract. The first is that if you're an outside person who comes in from the outside to do the job, you would be paid bi-weekly. So you'd get that consistent paycheck every other week. The next piece is if someone is on the inside doing the job, meaning they're a teacher and the athletic director, they would receive the stipend 3 times a year, after the fall season, after the winter season, and at the last day of school when teachers get their lump sum. So at least they're getting that consistently 3 times a year. We met with Kevin a couple times on this. We had a conference call with him as well. He's 100% behind it. So, this allows Rob to go out and sign an AD, and it allows for someone from the outside not to have to wait a year to get paid, and allows someone from the inside to get consistent paychecks over the course of the school year.
Yeah. And
The motion
Kevin,
language is very long. I'm sorry about that.
yeah, and I did when I prepared the motion language. I mean, we definitely, Paul took a look at it, and Kevin Reardon also took a look at it as well, and confirmed that it was all set.
That's key, right? To make sure that DTA is in agreement with any language changes that we make. So that's key to it. So if they're in agreement with it, I don't think that, I don't have any further questions. Does the committee have any further questions? I'd be looking for a motion.
In line with what other people are doing.
Correct. So I'd be looking for a motion.
And take a deep breath here. So I move to approve the change in payments for the high school athletic director from lump sum separate paycheck to at the completion of the school year to A.1 internal athletic director stipend will be paid in accordance with the appropriate schedule as set forth in Appendix C. Stipend amount shall be paid in 3 installments. The first payment will be made in the payroll following the end of the fall sports season. The second payment will be made in the payroll following the end of the winter sports season. The third and final payment will be made in the last teacher's payroll, the last day of school. Payments will be made as a separate check. A.2 external athletic director stipend shall be paid in accordance with the appropriate schedule as set forth in Appendix C. Stipend amount shall be paid in a generally equal bi-weekly payments from September, the first regular teacher's payroll, through June. For June, depending on the last day of school, the last payment will be made on the next regular payroll after the end of the school year. The stipend amount and payments will be prorated if the athletic director does not work the full school year.
Motion made by Teresa,
Seconded by Meg.
seconded by Meg. Roll call vote, please.
Beth Bergstrom, aye.
Teresa Brooks, aye.
Meg Rod and I.
Julia Lagerholm, aye.
Heather Moore and I. Thank you. Moving on to the next is the FY 2025 Assistant to the Accounts Business Manager, Accounts Payable Salary.
Yes, when we brought the rest, because I was kind of in the middle of a process, so we did do all the others, we didn't do this one. So we're just rectifying that. So I just took, like we did with the others, the FY 24 and added the 6%, which is consistent with the others, for a salary of $57,865 for the assistant to the business and operations manager accounts payable position. And that
Is
will be the
anyone-
amount voted. Certainly it will be up to as far as looking for candidates and things of that nature, but yeah.
Anyone have any questions? If not, I'd be looking for a motion.
I move
I'll-
to,
Okay, go Teresa.
okay, no, go ahead if you want.
No, you got it, girl. You good, you good.
I move to approve the assistant to the business and operations manager accounts payable position as detailed and talked about in tonight's meeting.
Motion made by Teresa, seconded by Julia. All, roll call vote, please.
Beth Bergstrom, aye.
Teresa Brooks, aye.
Meg Rodsden, I.
Julia Lagerholm, aye.
Heather Moore and I. And there's nothing else in our consent agenda, just making sure I've got the right copy that I'm looking at, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, moving on to the school business and operations manager report.
Yes, I do have one reclassification for you, and this is to move funds from the general fund into the FY 2024 rural aid grant to utilize the balance of that grant. And these are iPads and actually, this is all iPads actually, that we purchased for the primary school.
Does anyone have any questions? If no one has any questions, I'd be looking for a motion, please.
I will
Sorry.
make this motion to approve this reclass, I'm sorry, I'm looking at it. Approve this
We're all gonna
reclass,
have to go, yeah.
approve this reclassification, for, do you want me to read the
Yeah,
warrant
we just
numbers?
say FY 2024 reclassifications number 10 from school committee meeting June 26, 2024. You want to
What
so
she said?
move?
Yes, yes, I'd love to move. Yep, just like that.
Julia made the motion, seconded by
Teresa.
Teresa. Roll call vote, please.
Beth Bergstrom, aye.
Teresa Brooks, aye.
Meg Rodsden, I.
Julia Lagerholm, aye.
Heather Moore and I. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The only other thing that I want to report on before I get to the next agenda item, boy, I think we're all just tired. Is that we do have, unfortunately, we as you know, we had a finalist and someone that accepted the position in my office, but then accepted another position, unfortunately, because I did hear from absolutely everybody she would have been fantastic. But we do, Jean and I and Ellen do have an interview on Tuesday with someone, a candidate that does have 30 years of experience in the city of Worcester. So as far as, you know, a whole bunch of areas, grants, you know, payroll, all of that. So everybody, please keep your fingers and toes crossed and we'll see what happens. So I do also have for you this evening, the FY 2023 end of the year report audit. There was no exceptions. Everything went fine. So I have provided a copy of that for you as well. And that doesn't have to be voted on or anything, but I did provide a copy of it to you. Does anyone have any questions about it, the end of the year report or the audit?
Did we share that with the town side, Courtney?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, Jean has it.
Thank you.
Yes. Yeah, always. Does anyone want a dissertation on the DESE end of the year report? Probably not.
It's all good, but that's good.
Yeah.
It's a very good audit report. I did, for my leisure, I did read it. So that's why I'm making sure that the town is aware of how well we did. So.
Oh, yeah. Yep. I always send any audits. They always go to the audit to the town. Yeah, it's student activity funds as well. And that one will be coming next, hopefully soon. I need to email them again.
Awesome.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other topics not anticipated this evening? We are going to enter into
You're all
a,
set.
Yep, we are going to enter into executive session to discuss strategy with respect to the deployment of security devices and strategies to respect thereto of the open meetings that may be detrimental effect on the position of this government body. We will not come back out of executive session to school committee open meeting. We will adjourn from our executive session. I need to have a motion, please.
So moved.
Motion made by Teresa, seconded by
Meg,
Meg, seconded by Meg. I need a roll call vote, please, to enter into executive session on June 26th at 7:30 PM.
Beth Bergstrom, aye.
Teresa Brooks, aye.
Meg Rods and I.
Julia Lagerholm, aye.
Heather Moore and I.